Hello, my friends. How are you? Welcome to the Be Brand podcast. This episode with Tara Wagner was so amazing. Like, literally, I feel like I say that every episode, but I actually met Tara. She hired me to do a photo shoot of her. She just moved back to Vegas when she hired me, and then we hit it right away. And we have been having almost like mastermind meetings since then. And there were parts of her story that I didn't know. And when she came into the podcast, she shared with me this part of the story that she wanted to really start bringing into her business because she feels that it's going to be so beneficial to her audience. And guys, girls, I'm telling you, there is so much goodness in this, and there is such a strong message of resilience. And when you hear her story, I would love for you to share this episode or share with me a nugget and with her. But a few of the takeaways from here is how personal and inner growth require self-reflection, learning, and healing. Shifting identity really involves moving away from old beliefs and moving towards new values and new goals. And her story, honestly, I want to put a veil of like, I want you to listen with careful because there may be triggering parts. But I just wanted to tell you how special this episode was and so many takeaways when it comes to how to deal with doubt, with inner growth, mindset growth. Tara is a coach that she helps a lot of women once they actually hit burnout. Her whole mission is to help women not hit burnout and small business owners to make a full-time income in a part-time schedule. So this is going to be a super interesting and amazing episode. I can't wait for you to listen. Welcome, everybody, to the BU Brand podcast. You know that most of the time, I only bring you people that I am connected with. They're my friends. I know them. And today, my guest has an incredible story. She is not only an amazing coach, but also she has a story that actually I don't know a lot about, which is crazy because she's here in Las Vegas. We have done masterminds. We have done photo shoots. All the photos you see on her website, not all of them, but like 90% of the photos on her website, I have done. When she told me about what she wanted to talk about, I was like, what? So we are going to go deep into her story. Tara, welcome to the Be Brand podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Tara, can you tell us, usually I start with the story, but we're going to start with who you are today and what do you do? Because then I want to take people back to your beginnings.
Yeah. Okay. So I call myself a reluctant business coach. I've been in business for almost 24 years myself in multiple businesses. I've been doing mindset coaching since 2010. I've been specifically working with small business owners since about 2017, 2018. Helping them to upgrade themselves, their business plan, their success habits so that they can create full-time profits with a part-time schedule and stop burning out. Ooh. Yes, I love what I do. I can do it they always say, what could you do all day, every day and never get tired of it? I'm like, this is it. Like,
yeah, me too.
Like together, right? Anything. And if we can start talking business, I'm going to have so much fun because my values are around helping good people make good money so they can do more good with it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people out there that are making good money and doing nothing good with it.
No.
We need those heart-centered people that can put themselves out there, make a difference in their impact or make a difference in their community. And I specifically have a heart and a soul for small businesses because of the impact that they have on their community. It's so much greater because they have to be so much more connected with their audience, and they have to stay connected with community needs. And so there's just such a beautiful impact when we're talking about small businesses. Not to say a small business can't turn into a fantastic, huge business. That's amazing. But I love helping those small business owners because that's where so many of us start. And it can be a struggle, especially because of the really, I'm going to call it immature, for lack of a better word, inexperienced advice that's out there.
Oh,
about how to
absolutely.
build a business.
Well, that, and I think also the first few years, right? And when I say few, I don't necessarily mean 3.
Right.
Like, I feel like it could be more for some people. That it's so much, especially for small business owners, that connection to their self-worth and to who they are, as opposed to looking at their business as an outside entity.
Yes.
And I think, I mean, I went through it.
Literally, I feel like that undercurrent is happening in so many conversations right now and needs to be happening about this. Because we're so big into personal branding, which is beautiful and wonderful, and it has its purpose. You know that. But what people don't realize is that you have to also separate yourself out from your business, because you are worthy and deserving and priceless. And that has nothing to do with what's happening in your business. What's happening in your business has a lot to do with your mindset, but also skills and strategies and things that you implement. And we are, I think, inadvertently learning that we should take those things personally, that if this isn't working, it's saying something about us. And that's just not the case. We need...
Well, if you think about it, I think that is, and we're already like out of our conversation, but I actually, there was a few things that I thought as you were talking. One is how our values are actually so aligned, because, and how passionate we are about helping people. Like, you and I met at that cafe. Do you remember? Was it before your photo shoot? We met in person, and we stayed there until the play. Like, literally, they're like, ladies, you gotta go.
We're and get on some roll. This is going to be a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah. And I think that is something that doesn't happen with everybody. Like, there is definitely people that love what they do, and a lot of the people you and I surround ourselves with absolutely are heart-centered businesses.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, people, not to say that you don't want to make money. We all want to make a shit ton of money, you guys. I want to tell you this.
Yeah.
Money is good. We want to bring in money. But if the only reason why you're in your business is because of the money, that brings a lot of other problems.
Yes.
Right? Like dissatisfaction, like wanting to pivot all the time, like all these other...
Money is a constantly moving target. You can always make more and more and more of it. And so you're never going to feel like you made it, because as soon as you get to your first target, that target's already moved on you. You already have different people saying, oh, you should be making more, and you should be doing this, you should be doing that. If you don't know what your values are, what your goals are, what you are on this planet to do, why you want to do this business, and it doesn't mean the business has to change the world. You could be selling widgets on Amazon, but why does that matter to you? What are those underlying values that are guiding that? Is it about time freedom? Is it about opportunities for your family? Like, if you're not clear on what your actual values are, then you're just going to constantly move that target, constantly be chasing it. You're going to end up somewhere, but in 10 years, it's going to be someplace that you don't even recognize.
I always think that for me, one of the biggest lessons around that has been like, it's on the journey. The fulfillment is on the journey. I had made a huge inner world change last year around every day. I'm like, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? And that has changed everything for me.
Yeah.
Because when I jump on the podcast, I'm thinking of the people listening on the other side. When I jump on a call with a client, I'm thinking what that's going to do for her. Yeah. When I'm posting, when I'm creating content, how am I serving my audience, and how can this one thing make a difference for her? Yeah. That changed everything for me. If it was only the money, girl, I can go back to bartending.
Exactly. There are easier ways for me to make money and have a stopping point at the end of my day where I am not tempted to continue to work. And now, like, I can shut it off and take vacation time without still thinking about
that they can tell me, okay, girl, you gotta go home. Bye.
Exactly. You have to have a heart for business, and you have to have a heart for what it is that you do in your business. And I say that again, saying you don't have to have a business that changes the world. You can literally be selling, fancy pens on Amazon. It doesn't matter, but you need to have a heart for business. And you need to have some connection to what you're doing, something that gives you value or meaning, even if it's just, this is giving me enough money to be able to give to these foundations over here that I believe in. So I'm going to work my ass off in this business because I'm so passionate about this organization that my business can now support.
I love that.
In some way, shape, or form, you got to have that deeper meaning.
One more thing that came up while you were introducing yourself, because I want to get into the meat of this. How do you actually describe a small business? Because I think that there is so many definitions of a small business out there. So for me, I know that when I talk about small businesses, my thought always go to women-owned service providers because that's what I work with.
Yeah.
But that's not the definition for everybody. So I want to know what you define as a small business.
Yeah. So there are actual definitions set by the IRS.
I know, but it goes all the way to 5 million.
Yeah. I don't even know what they are. The way that I think of a small business is more in terms of the people in that business, working that business. I think of a small business as 15 and under. Other people might say 25.
15 employees and under.
Including yourself and under. Most people are solopreneurs. Even if they have a part-time VA or a full-time VA, they're really still solopreneurs. They don't have a team. They have somebody that's doing tasks for them, but they are running the whole business.
Yeah.
So I like that niche of 0 to 5. That's my niche.
Yeah.
I love working with people that are micro businesses because I think that there's so much fun. There's so much potential there. And it's so accessible to so many people in ways that it didn't used to be. When I started business was not as accessible as it is today, which comes with its own challenges, right? We have such a low barrier of entry that anybody can jump in and then they don't do very well at it. And then, they think, well, this just doesn't work. And that's just kind of part and parcel with business. It's going to be challenging. When you have a higher barrier of entry, people come into it with a little bit more strategy, organization, commitment, funding, things like that, the ways that we used to do it. We don't have to do that now, but we do have to put in a lot more commitment and energy.
The way I see it, and I actually share this with my clients a lot, is listen, you came into your business without maybe $100K or without a brick and mortar or whatever.
Yeah.
You're putting that in sweat, tears, and investing on yourself so you can actually learn the skills.
Yes. In one way or another, you have to invest in your business. If you have money, invest money because you can't get time back. But if you don't have money, you have to invest time. And that doesn't mean you have to grind. It doesn't mean you have to be working, I used to work 112 hours a week. I know the definition of grind. It doesn't mean you have to do, I know Ati's face right now, for those of you that are listening, just about.
I know I never work that. I pride myself of nobody can outwork me. I just found the person.
Well, that's what happens when you come into it with the wrong mindset, the wrong skill set, the wrong, approach to business is you end up grinding. You don't have to grind, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy either. When I talk about hard work, I'm not talking about long hours where you're killing yourself. I'm talking about work that feels mentally and emotionally challenging to you. It's going to challenge your ideas. It's going to challenge your beliefs. It's going to challenge your habits. It's going to challenge your relationships. It's going to force everything to grow. I talk about
you're becoming a new person at every level.
Exactly. I tell people small business is not a money-making opportunity. It's a people-growing machine.
Yes.
The rating as a money-making opportunity.
Yes.
You're going to have to grow literally everything in your life. And that's hard work. That's the hard work. But we're not.
Well, and that is where we're going to, you love helping people with mindset. And I don't even know if we're going to get there. But I think for me, that has been the biggest thing, right? At every level, I'm becoming somebody else.
Yes.
And it's me, but it's the highest next version of me.
Yeah.
The better version, the more aware version, the more organized version, the more, I don't know, risk adverse, right? Yes. So every single little thing that we bring into a play is helping us become somebody else, which is going to actually bring me to your crazy story.
It's crazy even when I look back on it. I haven't talked about this much at all over the past 24 years now since the story really started to end and this new story began for me. Because
okay, so let's actually go there.
Okay.
I want you to share with people, you had a really rough start.
I had a very rough start.
Can you share that? Because, okay, wait a minute. I want to give people an idea of where you're at today.
Yes.
Your business is about, you're literally a millionaire. You're a millionaire business owner. Yes. You have been in business in this realm, the way you're doing it now, for how long?
This particular niche, I have been in this since 2018.
Okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. Same. Yeah. Okay, so you have been in this niche for about 5 years. I've already met you, and like, for me, you're this like amazing online business owner running ads. I see you everywhere. You're like the way you speak, like all of these, you're the successful person. Bring me back.
I have to add, because it's relevant to the story, with a very successful relationship with a man that I've been with for 24 years. Yes. And mentally and emotionally in a very healthy place. Like, I am a genuinely happy person who loves life. All of those things are.
And you have because of your own son. I want to say that because for the people that are gonna see in video, when you told me that it says it's 23, right?
24.
Or 24.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, what? Like, there is no fucking way. Yeah. So I think that that's actually very, very relevant.
Yeah.
Take us on the journey, friend.
Okay, so you have to know my childhood years were very tumultuous. We had enough food on the table. We had a roof over our head. That was about the only needs that were met, and they were just barely met. So I grew up with a lot of, I didn't realize that it was poverty, but it was poverty. You know, we were very kind of sheltered from the idea of poverty. Grew up witnessing a lot of abuse, grew up with different health challenges. By the time I got to be a teenager, I was mentally and emotionally struggling. And because of that, it led me down some paths that shock people when they find out. I dropped out of high school at the end of 9th grade. I started getting very much involved with all of the wrong types of people. I started getting very much involved with drugs. I became a heavy meth user.
Yeah, when you told me that, I couldn't believe it. Okay, before you keep going,
it shocks people.
Before you keep going, I want you to kind of bring me a little bit into this teenager.
Yeah.
That was emotionally struggling.
Yeah. I went from this very colorful child, like outgoing, excited, wore lots of colors. And then as you go through your middle school years and you start to become more and more aware of the world around you, and it starts to shift your mentality. This is one area in our life, or one time in our life, where our beliefs start to get formed. Because of my experiences, I was starting to form beliefs that were saying I'm not worthy, that were saying I don't matter, that were saying, I don't have options or opportunities.
And I almost feel like you were getting reinforced on that, because a lot of that, because from 0 to 7 is when most of our patterns get formed, right? How we cope.
Yeah, I would say the majority of them. And then again, when we're getting into our teen years, our brain is doing this massive rewiring. And so we can form new beliefs. We can reaffirm beliefs that are already there and make them stronger and either more powerful in a positive way. Like, I don't want to talk about beliefs as though they're all bad. They're actually very helpful, useful things, but they can also be very damaging. And so I started sinking into this depression, and we didn't recognize it as depression until I was probably about 16 years old. By that time, it was too late. I was running away from home. I was doing lots of drugs. I was, I was in a deep, dark hole. I look back at that time in my life, and I don't remember color. I don't remember flavor. I don't remember joy. I think about where I was. I'm going to get emotional. I think about where I was and where I am today, and that little girl would not have recognized me today. Probably would have.
You probably don't recognize her either.
I do, because it was a part of me, but it was such a different part of me that I often forget that that's part of my story. That's why I don't talk about it anymore, because I don't see myself as an ex-drug user. I see myself as somebody who's never used drugs, because that's just not my reality. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any of those things.
When you told me about this, I was like, what?
Yeah. So, and for me, the meth part isn't even the worst part. The worst part for me was I happened to get clean off of meth just by accident. Our connections dried up. We searched everywhere and couldn't get any. This happened literally probably right at the crossroads between me not being able to come back. So it was pure luck that I was able to get off meth. Did lots of other stuff instead, but I didn't go back to meth. After that, though, shortly after that, I ended up getting pregnant. I ended up having my son. I had postpartum depression on top of major depression. When I was pregnant, my son's dad went to jail. He was gone through my entire pregnancy. When he came back out, our relationship turned very abusive. So I was being physically and emotionally abused, dealing with postpartum depression and major depression. I was at a point in my life that is so dark that anybody that tells me that they're there, like, I immediately just want to like wrap them up in a hug, because I remember how alone I felt in a room full of people. I remember very clearly like laying on the ground, looking at my son's face as he's laying beside me, and just like, I don't know. Like, it wasn't this idea of I don't want to be here, but it was definitely this idea of I can't see myself here anymore. And I did have instances, just trigger warning for people that are there, and we may want to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
I had 3 instances over a period of 5 years where I tried to take my life because I was in such a deep, dark place. I don't remember the exact moment or why I had this change of experience, but I remember it was the spring of 2000, somewhere around there. I looked around my life. I saw everything. I had damn near every statistic stacked against me, right? I looked around my life. I'm looking at everything and I'm going, I don't know what's possible for me. I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I can have, but I know I don't want this. And it was that moment that I made this shift and I said, okay, if I don't want this, let me just start doing something that's not this. So I moved back home with my mom. I got my GED. Within 9 months, I was a business owner. I had met the man that I am still married to today. I was getting through. I was on the path now to overcoming depression. I probably finished that path. It was a long path. I probably finished that path around the time I was 30. It was a 9-month transformation that put me on the path to where I'm at now. I don't want to say that it was like night and day and my life was happily ever after. It wasn't. I had a lot of deep work that I had to do to continue to heal from that time. But now I look back and I'm like, it was such a perfect path. And it's not a path about, creating your life. It was really a path about transformation. I had to transform internally and externally, everything about me.
Knowing you now, this is so beautiful, but I can't even think what it is to be in such a dark place. And I know that there is so many women that they may not be where you were at that moment, but I know that a lot of women, especially when it comes to business, they go into a very dark place.
Yes.
A place of like lack of self-worth and like they feel like this lack of worthiness. So I feel like at some point, right, there is a lot of crossover for stories. Exactly. My question to you is like, because a lot of these women, they're not finding what is that igniter?
Yeah.
What is the igniter that you actually looked around and you said, I don't know what I want, but I don't want this?
I think for me, and I hope that it doesn't have to be this for anyone else, but for me, it was rock bottom. Like I was at the literal end of my rope. I knew that I was not going to survive.
Well, and you had a little baby too.
I had a baby, but that did not get through to the same extent that it would have gotten through if I was in a healthier place. I had a really difficult time feeling love, feeling any of those things because I was in such a dark place. I'm being physically abused.
You were in like almost like an emotional.
So for me,
like cocoon.
Yeah, Elizabeth Gilbert said it, and I'm going to misquote it, but she says something along the lines of rock bottom became the firm foundation on which I built my life. I had to hit that rock bottom, unfortunately. I think everybody's rock bottom though looks different. Not everybody's rock bottom is going to be, meth and laying on the floor and not wanting to live anymore. Their rock bottom may be they're looking around their life and saying, I can't do this. Like this.
Yeah, no, it's right. I mean, I didn't have a story like yours, but at some point, what made me so happy, I looked around, I was like, I don't want to come to this job. I don't want to be up until 5 a.m. anymore. I don't want to do this. I'm like, everything I'm doing in my life, I don't want to do.
Yeah.
What the fuck am I doing in my life?
And I want to tell women that's a valid rock bottom. That is valid. Like, you don't have to say, I didn't, a lot of women feel like I don't have some important story. And especially if you're talking about personal branding, I don't have some shake the world story.
You don't need one.
Your story, the emotional anguish that we go through is just as valid when we are in a good life that is not aligned with us as it is when we're in a bad life. Like, those things are both valid, and it's important that we're paying attention to those things so that they don't turn even worse.
But I almost feel like when we listen to stories like yours, it's almost empowering to be, okay, girl, to ourselves, right? Like, okay, girl. Like, if she can do it where she was, what the fuck is my excuse?
And that's why I've started sharing this more, because I've had people say, whoa, wait a second, I didn't know that about you. And I'm going, oh, you didn't? I kind of just, for whatever reason, thought everybody knew that. And it, like, what?
Yeah, well, because it's your story. And that's actually like part of it, right? People think, well, nothing is interesting because, well, you know your story, but other people don't. So bring me to those 9 months. I can't even think of all the things you have gone through since then to become this person now. So what do you think that were the pivoting points? And what has been the tools that had helped you the most?
Yeah. I think the most important pivot was the decision. And it's not a single decision. I don't want to say that I made that choice and then from then on out, I was just committed. I made that choice. And yes, I was committed enough to take me through the times where I second-guessed myself, where I didn't know if it was worth it, where I didn't know if I was going to be able to. It took me probably another 3 years after that to get to the point where my depression was not completely under control, but under control enough that I was no longer, feeling that way. It took me many more years to then undo the things that had created the depression in the beginning. And it was a constant choosing. Do I want this or do I want that? Am I going to settle for this or am I going to push? And I'm pushing towards things that people that know me don't agree with, people that know me are uncomfortable with, people that know me get offended by, not because I am necessarily offending them, but because it's maybe making them view things in their life differently.
Well, it's kind of like if you, for example, and I'm sure that this was probably a example for you, if you stop drinking,
right?
The people around you is like, why do you stop drinking? Like, why can't you drink? And I'm like, for me,
anymore.
Yeah, that was my story. And I was like, okay.
So I think that decision was a big one. And I want to say this. A lot of people say, I'm a big believer in affirmations. I think they're beautiful when they're done in a certain way. A lot of people will say that your affirmations should be positive, present tense, I am statements. I want to tell you that the first affirmation that you need to say, which is going to be the most powerful affirmation that you say, is going to be a big old hell no. No more. No, I will not take this. I don't want this. This is bullshit. I'm done. I'm through. I'm over. You may have to get enough emotion behind that decision to put you on the path you need to be.
The scientific actual reason for that is you're actually saying something that is absolutely true.
Exactly.
And you should need to keep affirming that to yourself. The biggest problem I see, and we are not going to go into that path right now, but the biggest problem I see with the whole affirmation world, Shaz made a post about this. This is crazy, 10 minutes before the podcast, is that people keep affirming shit they don't actually believe.
Yes.
And they have this idea that the affirmation is going to get through their conscious, in their subconscious, but that's not how it works. So we're going to leave it out there. But I love the fact that you're the biggest affirmation is no more of this, because that's something that's truly deep.
It is not what you are saying. It is how you feel about it. If you have that much emotion behind it, it is going to have to shift you. And you are going to feel so uncomfortable going backwards. I reiterated that to myself again and again and again over the span of years in many different ways, not just about this one particular decision, but over and over and over again saying, I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to settle. I don't know what's possible. I don't know what I can have, but I'm not going to settle. And that
for me,
emotion is what pushed me forward.
that was, and there were several times in the first few years of business that I got either an offer to, when they opened Circa, for those of you that don't know, that's a huge casino here. They call me, they're like, whatever you want. Whatever you want. Do you want the main shift? Do you want to work one night? Do you want to work 2 nights? Whatever you want. That's a shift where you can go and make $1,000, $1,500 a night. And I remember, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
I'm not taking the easy road. And those were times where it was hard.
Yeah.
Like the first few years were fucking hard. And I remember so many times I had to affirm, I'm not going back. This is who I am now.
Yeah.
This is who I am. I'm a business owner. This is where I belong.
Yes. And that's huge, actually. I don't remember what book it was in. I want to say it was The Power of Habit, but I could be wrong. Where they talk about if you really want to change your habit, you have to change your identity. It's not enough to change what you do. You have to change who you are. And that was really the transformation that I went through.
Yeah.
And when I look at what I've done, I've done the mindset coaching now since 2010. When I look at my whole life and all of the transformations I went through, it was really a transformation of myself. And when I'm working with business owners, we're talking about strategies and we're talking about systems and we're talking about, things that will make their business easier. But at the same time, underlying that is this message of transformation. If you are not willing to make changes, hard changes that are uncomfortable, changes that there's a part of you that's going to say, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. If you're not willing to do that, it's going to be so much, I won't say you can't do it, but it's going to be so much harder to get to that goal because transformation has to happen.
The identity work is the key.
Yeah.
I remember and this is not about me, it's about you, but like my biggest thing was kind of moving from world champion flair bartender, everybody loves me, everybody knows who I am in my circle, came into my office nobody knows.
What does that say about it? What does that mean? Is this okay?
What does that mean? Like, how do you know? But yeah. So like the identity work, and I'm actually have something coming up that people are going to know what identity work is. Another layer of this is the inner work. You mentioned the feelings.
Yeah.
That is the true inner work, right? Because mindset, we can change about how we think about something, but if we don't feel the truth behind it.
The way that I talk about mindset is I want you to think about your thoughts as the outcome, right? Like that's what's going to happen after you do the mindset work. That's the surface level. Let's get below that. It's helpful. We need to use that to get below it. Okay, here's what you're thinking about. What are those thoughts? Like, what are the emotions behind those thoughts? I know everybody says your emotions come from your thoughts. That can be. But your emotions create your thoughts.
Actually, the other way around. Okay, so, this whole year has been all about NLP, hypnotherapy, life success coaching. Actually, is the other way around.
I agree.
Because emotions are triggered by past memories, and they're triggered also by our coping mechanisms, which are our attachment styles. I'm not going to get into that. But so now you have a feeling, you feel like shit. You're like, I was in my office feeling like shit, right? Or you were going through your story and you are identifying with the person that you were, the person I was doing meth. I'm like, I am not this person. I'm not deserving of this business, whatever it is. But the truth is you're having the feeling first, and the thought
and the action follows.
It's actually us trying to justify the feeling, because sometimes we don't know where the feeling came from. And that's why going back, like time techniques and like meditating, all of that is so important. And I love that we are talking about this.
Yeah. Yeah. So like what I tell people is you want to identify the underlying emotions. You want to identify the underlying needs. Right. So there's two ways that you can go. You can get into the beliefs, and that has its time and place. But what I have actually found is that if you identify the needs underneath the emotions, right? I'm feeling frustrated right now. Okay, why am I feeling frustrated? What am I actually needing? And it's not that I need somebody to do this and I need that done. Those are behaviors. That's the outcomes again. But why do you need those things done? What underlying deep human needs is that going to meet for you? Well, I really need a sense of order. I really need a sense of progress. I really need a sense of fulfillment, whatever those things are. Okay, now I've identified those things. What are some ways that I can meet those needs? If this strategy is not working, if I want so-and-so to do such and such, or I want myself to do something that I can't get myself to do, is there another strategy that I can try that's going to honor these needs, especially when we have conflicting needs? I have conflicting needs all the time. I have like one side of me being raised in poverty and going through, I was on welfare, all of those things. That side of me is very security oriented. Then I have this very deep value of mine for growth, for expansion, for challenging myself, and for impact. Well, that's not a very secure road. So I have these conflicting needs. How can I go about building my business in a way that honors both of these needs? Well, let me get a security fund in place. Let me make sure that I know my numbers when I'm making decisions. Let me make a backup plan in case my big shiny plan doesn't work out. What am I going to do so that I know my needs are going to be met? I know that I'm going to be safe and secure no matter what happens.
I love that. Do you think you can pinpoint the moment where you got into, I want to say, personal development and inner work?
And not the exact moment, but a very close call. So I started working for myself within those 9 months, shortly after I had met my husband. It was about 2 years working part-time before I went full-time in my first business. Within about 5 years of going full-time, so about 8 years, well, a little bit longer, I guess, because it was 8 years total, I hit burnout in my business so bad. This is when I was working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day.
And at this point, you're doing everything out of force.
I'm doing everything out of force, and I'm doing everything out of fear, and I'm doing everything to move away from this old person.
Instead of moving toward.
Yes. I don't want people to know that I was a high school dropout. I don't want people to know that I was doing meth. I don't want any of those things. So I was moving away from all of those things, trying to figure out who am I without those. And this is, not necessarily a conscious thing that I was doing, but I still was carrying those beliefs of, I'm a high school dropout. Why should anybody hire me? Nobody's going to respect me. I need to hustle, and I need to put on a facade that...
Yeah, because this is how you saw yourself.
Yes. Even though nobody knew these things, nobody knew anything, I was still acting under that. So I am doing all of the things, all of the wrong things, making terrible decisions, in part because I wasn't getting mentoring, I wasn't getting training, I wasn't learning things. I was just trying to do stuff. And then when it didn't work, I just did more.
Yeah, you were like working out of force, and you were working from only what you knew.
Exactly. So I burned out hard. It was after that burnout, that moment. And I remember that moment very clearly. I'm like sitting on my bed. I called my husband in, I'm having to have this conversation of like, I can't keep going. I think it would even be more financially advantageous for me to not keep going if I could just stay home, take care of, our son, and cook home-cooked meal. Like, I could probably do more with your income than we could having my income. And having that discussion with him of like, I'm going to close my business down. I can't keep doing this. It was that moment because, again, it was a rock bottom moment. I had so much shame. I had my tail between my legs. I can't do this. What does that say about me? I was trying to build this person. I was trying to become this new person, and I can't do it. And why? And that's when I started getting into the personal development, because I finally figured out I had to fully heal what was inside me. Action alone was not going to change the old beliefs that had guided me through those bad decisions.
I want to make a highlight here for our listeners, because I think that once we start getting in personal growth and we read books, and now we both coach on these topics, we start using this language that sometimes when you are on the other side, you're on the burnout, you're in the rock bottom, a lot of the times you feel like you're alone. Yeah. And I kind of want to talk about this because I actually know people that listen to the podcast that can so benefit from this story that you're sharing, that is like, okay, you get to have a choice of like how you move forward. Yeah. Like, are you feeling those feelings? Are you feeling shame? Are you having your guilt because maybe you did invest it, or maybe you're not doing anything and you yet don't have the knowledge that all of this is out there, or maybe you just vaguely heard about it?
I mean, I was starting from scratch. I was going to bookstores and the library and finding books on anything that I could find.
Yeah, because we are from the age of books.
I know. We didn't have the internet. Pinterest was getting popular, so I was starting to pin things on Pinterest that were like, choose to be positive. And I was like, how do I choose? How do you choose that when your brain is just constantly going in the direction that it wants to go? How do I actually choose that? And I was getting so frustrated. So I was doing so much research into psychology methods and spirituality and all of these different things, trying to piece together, okay, but how? How do you actually heal these things? Because I finally had figured out the same beliefs that had led me to meth and welfare and an abusive relationship were the same beliefs that had led me to a business that was burning me out and that was killing me and that was destroying. I mean, my family was falling apart. I created health issues from that first business that I still live with today. Like it was another detrimental time in my life. That
we're also having a lot of self-sabotage.
It was a lot. I don't like to call it self-sabotage. I like to call it self-protection. Because ultimately, that's what I was trying to do. I didn't want to sabotage anything, but I wanted to stay safe. And I had all these
about actually I love that concept that you threw actually a huge concept out there.
We could talk about that.
Okay, we need we're going to do another episode of this on protectors and attachments and all of that. But because when we actually self-sabotage, it's usually a behavior that we have that is protecting us from something that we internally do not know.
It's not usually, it is always. If there is something that you are doing that is sabotaging the things that you want, it is because it is trying to protect you from something that it doesn't want. That's your entire focus of the brain is like avoid pain, keep yourself safe so that you can continue to live and procreate. And like we still have that monkey brain in there. Now if it's like, I want to post on Instagram and I'm not, and I need to go live and I need to do this, but I'm not. And instead I'm scrolling and I'm watching this and I'm wasting time and I'm doing that. Okay, but why? What are the unintended consequences of you getting successful, of you putting yourself out there, right? And I've dealt with all of them. It's like,
and a lot of those are not even true.
What are people going to think of me? My relationships are going to suffer. So-and-so is going to reject me. This person's going to think that I'm sleazy. Like, if we have those underlying things, we have to address those or we're going to continue to have that clash between values. The value to stay safe and to connect with the people that we love or to, have...
Which we all have. Which we all have.
We cannot get rid of it. And the value to grow and to experience the success and to experience the fulfillment or the impact or whatever it is you're trying to do.
So you start your journey in personal and inner growth.
Yeah.
And what happens? How will you get to where you're at today? Because literally it's been so juicy already. But I feel like then from there, it's just been up and up.
It has.
And up. And you had a lot of challenges because even recently you had been dealing with a lot of health challenges since COVID. But this new identity that you have deals with everything so different. So how did you go from that burnout, closing the business, you started to do personal and inner work development?
So I was spending a couple years just doing that inner work and figuring out now we're shifting things in our parenting because my son had struggled for so long while I was working. So now my focus is on that, which that's bringing in child psychology and I'm learning how my own stuff got created. And parenting is a people growing machine too, folks. You can't avoid this. If you want a good life, you're going to have to grow for it. But I was doing all of this personal work. And this was the time when personal blogs were just starting to take off. And so I started blogging. I started blogging about our lifestyle and what we were trying differently. And I'm home now. And so I'm gardening and we're doing all this ecological stuff. And we've got a front and backyard that's all vegetable garden and chickens. And I'm homeschooling my son and we're doing all this stuff.
And you were at the time here in Vegas in Boulder City, right?
I was actually in Summerlin. So I'm in Vegas, side of town. We're doing all of these things. I start building this name for myself. People start to pay attention, hey, you're doing things kind of outside of the norm. And how do you get the courage for that? I would love to do some of that, but my neighbors would think I'm crazy. How do you do that? And so just kind of started dabbling a little bit in the mindset things and sharing what I was learning with people. And then it was the end of 2019. This is still in the recession. My husband's now losing his job. We're losing our house. We're losing everything. We're going back to what feels like another freaking rock bottom. And I'm like, okay, I am learning that all of these rock bottoms seem to lead to something better every time. So let's use this. And we decided to get rid of all of our stuff. We went from a 20,000 square foot house down to a 22-foot RV. We started traveling for 4 years. And in that time, I really then we're sharing our travels, my blog is growing, and I have people coming to me saying, can you coach me on this?
Which is amazing. I did not know this part of the story either.
Yeah. Can you coach me on homeschooling? Can you coach me on parenting? Can you coach me on reaching my goals, overcoming my fears? And so I started doing the mindset coaching in 2010. And then that just kind of took off and that did its own thing. And then it was about 2017 where it's kind of another rock bottom. We're going through this really rocky time in our relationship. I'd had some time to myself and I'm laying there just going, what does the future hold? And I had this vision of like, here's the work that you're meant to do. And I'm not going to show you everything, but here's this vision of where you could end up. And do you want this? And again, I had to make another choice. I remember laying there, staring at my ceiling like I'm talking to God and going, I don't know if I want it. And what about this? And what about that? And I'm literally having this conversation, trying to make this decision.
Okay, this is what I love about this conversation. I would have never guessed all of this about you. And I feel like I have
about 5 lifetimes, Ati.
Right? Well, yeah, but the thing is, I feel kind of the same way when it comes to every time I pivot, even within the last 5 years, we're doing the same business. We've been making decisions with like, okay, my identity is still attached to me, Ati photographer, right?
Yeah.
So now everything is coaching, speaking. I'm like, but I can't let go. I can't let go. And we had conversations around that. And I think that people listening right now, this is such a testament that whatever you're going through is all for you to build momentum.
Yeah. It's painful. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's hard. These are not hard. These are not easy things to come up against. But the thing is if you're coming up against them, that means that you are growing. Life is only plain and flat and boring and simple when nothing's happening, right? Like, there's an actual curse. There's an actual curse that says, may you live in interesting times. That's a curse, not a blessing, right? If things are nice and easy, that we're not challenging ourselves. One of my greatest values is growth. And I don't think that everybody needs to have that value, but I do think that if we are not developing ourselves in some capacity, whatever capacity is calling to us in this season of life, if we're not growing, we're slowly dying. We're a rope. Yeah. We're turning into something.
And I think that there is nobody in this world that doesn't have some sort of dream. Nobody. I actually don't agree. I think that they forget that they have them.
Yeah.
I think that at some point they decided that's not for me. I can't let that happen. I'm too scared.
Or we do need to acknowledge that some people have had it decided for them. And they didn't realize that they could say no to that. And so they landed on the path that they landed and they stayed there.
My dad, absolutely my father. Absolutely my father. My father, like, could go on and on. But literally, he said yes to working on his family business when he was in his 20s and literally forgo any decision that came after that just because it was easy.
Yes.
And he's so resentful.
Yeah.
Late in life, he started doing things, but like still like he's full of fear, full of mindset, like crazy.
So if you don't develop it at some point, you're going to have to develop it later. My mom used to always say, you pay for it now or you pay for it later.
Ooh, what a truth.
Like, one way or another, that applies to everything. Are you buying something cheap? Well, you're going to either pay for quality now or you're going to have to pay for it again later when you have to replace something. Are you going the easy route? Well, you're either going to have to pay the toll now or you're going to have to pay for it later. And a lot of times later is more. It's harder. It's more expensive.
Well, I think that what happens, I see it as coaches, we see it all the time, is people quit on themselves all the time.
Yeah.
6 months later, a year later, whatever time later, they look back and they're like, if I only kept going. Yeah. The same happens with the gym, right?
Yeah.
I was at the gym this morning and we had to do 30 fucking box jumps. And I was like, what? And then I was like, you know what? I am the person that finishes this. I don't care if I'm the last one.
Yep.
I will finish this.
Yes.
And I went one at a time.
Because it's not about the box jumps. It's about the person that you became.
Because
those box
every single fucking day. The person you become by going through something that you don't even believe that you can actually do.
And that,
like, literally, I actually almost fell in the middle of it.
That you don't want to do. That there's no part of you that wants to be there.
There was no part of me, but the skinny version of me was like, yeah, no, let's go. Walk me through how all of this has shaped who you are now. How are you bringing, because now you're deciding to tell your story. Now you're deciding to actually let people into all of this. And this is kind of new for you.
It is new.
So,
I did realize for a long time that a block of mine was worrying what other people would think. I didn't realize how pervasive that was in my life and how that was impacting everything. And so there was always this part of me that was holding back certain pieces. And that at a certain point just became habit, right? I wasn't telling the story not because I was ashamed of it anymore, but because I just was used to not telling it. And I just kind of...
and you even said at the beginning, like you almost forgot you were that person, but that shapes you.
Yeah. It's like, I read this in, I want to say it's The Power of Habit again, where they talk about, somebody who quit smoking, if they think of themselves as an ex-smoker, that is a very different mindset than thinking of yourself as a non-smoker. You are more likely to go back to smoking if you're an ex-smoker. Or if you talk about the fact that I am quitting, not I have quit, right? There's those subtle shifts in that change your identity. My identity is totally changed. Like I am...
Oh my God. I have to tell you something about that I've been working on. I, a lot of the time, tell people, I used to be a couch potato. Because that's true. I used to be a couch potato, party goer, all the things.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I'm not even can even remember what that felt like.
Yeah.
Because I identify with somebody that loves her body, that if I eat bad for 2 or 3 days, I jump into cleansing or whatever you want to call it. I can't even identify with that anymore.
Yeah. And that's really what has to happen. And I want to say part of that building the new identity is moving away from the old identity. I'm not this person. I'm not doing this anymore until you start to figure it out and you start to put the pieces into place of here's who I am. Oh, this is actually a value of mine. This is really important. This makes me feel really good. I really like that. You know what? I'm really attracted to this. I feel like that's a part of me and I want to develop that. Let me grow in that capacity. And then we stop moving away from something and we start moving towards something.
Yes.
And that's when things really start to take off.
Was there a moment recently or in the last 5 years that you've seen this massive success in your business where you have said, this is who I am now?
Oh, a moment? No. I really don't think I could pinpoint a single moment. When I look at it, it feels like one little grain of rice on top of another grain of rice on top of another grain of rice until pretty soon it was just this mountain of thing in front of me. And then it was like, oh, hey, look at me.
I love that. I love that.
I sometimes will look back and I'll sometimes even write a letter to my past self. Dear 14-year-old self, I just want you to know that this is not real.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Be your life, right?
I do that
having those conversations.
Child work.
Because it helps you to realize how much you've changed and how much you've grown because you're starting to look at it again through those eyes. And you can start to have and maybe even give love. I needed to receive love and attention. I needed somebody to stand up and fight for me and say, you can do better than this. You're worth better than this. I got those messages, but I didn't get anybody making sure that I got those messages.
Yeah.
Right? They told me, but then there were things going on in their lives too, where they didn't have the capacity to make sure.
Yeah, people were checked out.
Yes.
People were checked out.
And so I can still go back and give myself that. I can still say, look at what we've done. And that gives me so much more gratitude for my life. When I sit down and I look around and I'm like, I paid for this house. I bought this. I paid for that car out there cash. That was cool. Look at even health-wise. I've gone through so many health conditions over my lifetime, really. But then long COVID over the last couple of years. And I can look and say, you know what? 2 years ago, I couldn't get off that couch. I couldn't go from my bed to my bathroom and back again without being winded. And now, I've got a walking treadmill under my bed. That's awesome. And pretty soon you just start to have so much gratitude and so much joy. And this is why I think I'm a happy, I love my life person because I know the contrast. I know the alternative. I know how bad it can get.
And I think that everybody can look into contrast. They just don't know how to do that.
It's hard.
So I have one more question. Actually, I have 2 more questions for you. One is, what are you most passionate about doing with your work right now? I know that when it comes to your clients and all of that.
Yeah. Big picture or small project?
What are you passionate about? What is your main thing right now? So you have several programs.
I do.
So something like this. Call me when.
Oh. Call me when you are fed up with coaches out there giving you the pipe dream without the actual deep, mature, experienced strategies to actually get you there. Call me
there you go.
Tired and you are frustrated and you are spending too much time and energy on all the things and none of them are aligning with you and you don't know how to make this business work for you, that's when you need to call me.
I love that. Okay. And then I didn't tell you, but I ask all my people, what does it mean for you to be your own brand?
You know, I'll be honest, Ati, I feel like I am in a season of relearning that from scratch.
I love that.
So I don't even know if I could totally define it, simply because I am in this season now of sharing this story more.
Yeah.
And what does that look like to hold this story at the same time that I am who I am now? And how do I meld these two together? Like, ask me in a year.
I love that. I love
how it's changed.
I love your rawness, and I love the story. And like, for all our listeners and watchers on YouTube also out there, I want to tell you, like, I know her personally, and like, you're just so raw and real, and the fact that you're coming out and like telling your story, I feel you're going to help so many.
I hope so. I mean, I had a kind of a come to Jesus conversation with a series of people. The universe just sort of lined up all of these conversations for me to show me you're being really selfish by not talking about this.
Yeah.
It needs to be shared because no, not everybody is dealing with meth and abusive boyfriends and all these things, but we're all dealing with something.
But most of us had some sort of, like, there is no free trauma, people.
Yeah.
Because trauma is all about the meaning we give to things. Yeah. And I think that, like, everybody has to take this with a grain of salt, what it means to them.
Yes.
But I think that it's so inspiring. And I think that it's so important that people know that you can pull yourself out of anything.
Yeah. And that, I feel like, if I were to say anything was my brand, I would say my brand is about liberation, because that is my entire life, is realizing that I have the ability. It will be hard. It will be messy. There will be people that are working against me at times, but I still have the ability to liberate myself from anything that is not serving me, that is not serving others, that is not bringing me joy, that is making me miserable. Like, when I look at my life and all of the work I've ever done, even in completely unrelated businesses, it has always been about how can I help somebody be free of something? And that's my heart and soul. Like, I don't care what I'm doing, that's going to be at the core of all of it.
I love it. Can you tell people where they can find you and go, like...
So I'm going to blow everybody's mind. I have a business that is not active on social media. I know. Really? So you can find me on Instagram, but I haven't posted there in a long time. I do have a Facebook group. It's called The Healthy Hustle for Entrepreneurs with Tara Wagner.
Oh, I'm not in there. I'm going to go there.
You can find that. What I would actually recommend you do is go to my website, exotara.us, sign up for anything that I have there, get on my email list, because that's where the action's happening. I talk
what is your favorite freebie right now? So we'll put it on the show notes.
Yeah, let's do the Reversing Small Business Burnout checklist. So this is going to be a checklist that helps you audit the 3 main areas of your business to show you what are the things that are actually the underlying problems. Where do you need to actually focus in order to reverse burnout and create that full-time profit on a part-time schedule? So it's exotara.us/checklist, and it will show you what you need to be focusing on, but also the order in which you need to focus on it. Because sometimes there's a lot to do, but we don't have to.
And I will put those on the show note. But then for those that watch us on YouTube, we actually have quite a following that is starting to build a little bit on YouTube. So you have several YouTube videos.
Oh, I have hundreds of YouTube videos. Yes. So you can find a lot of my content still on YouTube, and I will be going back to YouTube soon. I don't know when yet. So definitely Tara Wagner Coaching on YouTube, and we can connect.
I love it. Awesome. This was amazing. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for giving me the space to share this.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.